welcome Alex Pinto, who is the Principal Data Security Scientist at Verizon Enterprise Services, where he is responsible for data science, analytics, and machine learning capabilities of their Verizon autonomous threat hunting and risk report products. Alex joined Verizon through the acquisition of Needle, where he was co-founder and chief data scientist. And while both Alex and Gabe Bassett developed this presentation, unfortunately, Gabe has a good excuse for not being here, which Alex will explain. So please welcome Alex Pinto.
Hey, how's the audio? We're good? We're great, awesome. All right, so let's get this started then. So I am Alex Pinto, right? I am not Gabe Bassett. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this crazy idea that me and Gabe have been kicking around the office called VCAF. So if we could just get to the slides. Oh, I do have a clicker, don't I? That's great idea. We'll get there. We're doing this live, guys. This is how it works. So yeah, this is what we were talking about. This is kind of what we're doing. So we all know about ATT&CK. I'm sure most of you don't really know what VERIS is about. We'll cover that, right? And it's really a very, very crazy idea about bringing those two things together, right? So anyway, these are us. I am pretty much, my day job is taking care of capybaras, but on my spare time, I do a lot of security data science, right? So Rich already told most everything that's relevant about me. Most of my quote-unquote fame came from doing machine learning stuff with threat-based data, with event data, right? And Gabe has been working on the DBIR for many, many years now. He's probably part of the furniture and has done some very, very interesting stuff over the years on graph analysis. So graph-based analysis, which is also a callback to what we were talking about on the keynote, right? And this is really where we're coming from. So sadly, Gabe couldn't be here. And anyway, I'm gonna start talking about this, and hopefully all will become more clear. This actually, it's probably gonna be a more abstract talk than you're used to in this specific venue, right? I'm specifically shying away from showing any spreadsheets or Excel, right? Excel guys, everybody here, right? Yeah? Yeah, everybody. Anyway, I'm not so much concerned about mapping things down. We're in downstream, right? We're trying to get the attack framework, and we're trying to, okay, how can I tie this to the specific things that's happening on my network? I've been thinking maybe we should try to focus, maybe there's another way to look at this at a more abstract venue, right? Also, this presentation, I think it's a titty bit more abstract than I normally do, right? I'm not gonna go into details of what exactly we're doing, right? And there's two main reasons for that. First of all, there's legal, right? So as Rich has already told, I've just recently joined a large company. I'm still learning a lot about what can and cannot be said. So blah, 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 forward-looking statements. I might not even be here right now, right? This might all be an illusion, right? But we are actually, I'm gonna talk about, I definitely don't wanna reveal anything that we may or may not be working with ahead of time, right? So that's thing number one. And reason number two, right? It's babies, right? So babies are the main reason why maybe this talk is not this research is not as far ahead as we would have wanted to, right? Mainly because Gabe just had one, right? So that's the main reason why he's not here. And I have one due in January, right? So it actually takes a long time. It's actually my first child. And it's surprising how much stuff there is to read, how much stuff there is to learn about them, right? I've been reading all these parenting books. I'm spending so much time trying to understand how do you raise a child? Where's the manual? Which buttons do you press, right? And there was one that I recently been reading, which I think was been fascinating to me, which it's called, and this clicker is flaking on me, it's called The Whole Brain Child. Let's talk about parenting for a bit. We'll get to your normally advertised content pretty soon. But the thing that I really enjoyed about this book, it's kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy for children, like dumbed down a little bit, right? And really the idea is that if a child is upset and it's, it's struggling with something, you're like, no, use your words, like name it. What is it? What is the thing? right? So we're trying to transition the kid from I'm angry, or I'm sad, or I'm like banging on the table, to, well, you know what? I'm kind of upset because I really have to eat all these Brussels sprouts until I get to dessert, right? So by talking to the child, right, and engaging with them, giving them the vocabulary so they can express what exact threats are happening to them in a specific point, it helps them find out their deficiencies, right, and help them understand what controls they should be implementing, right, in order to address that problem, right? And I'm clearly not talking about children anymore, right? So the point here is that what has happened with ATT&CK, at least what has come to my realization while we were working through this, is that we're kind of graduating from everything is on fire, right? Run for the exits, do not tweet out the way, right? To, you know what? We have determined through very careful simulation that there's a tiny deficiency on this specific thing. We're all very sophisticated now because we have the vocabulary, right? We can now talk about specific things that might be missing on our environment, right? In order for us to focus and address the points, right? I think it's super exciting because if any of you has ever seen any of my talks before, and I obviously apologize for you having seen any talk of mine before, I've always been very, very angry about non-specific security marketing. It's not so much, oh yeah, buy my product because I'll solve everything. Okay, when I need everything, I'll give you a call, right? This is what I need now. These are the things that I should be looking at. This is the next step on my journey to make this place more secure. And now we're starting to get the vocabulary, right, on how we can address these things. Anyway, this was not the first time I had kind of this realization. The first time I had this, oh wow, we're really getting somewhere, was the first time I saw the DBIR, right? So really the idea, this crazy people, right? And some of the original authors are here on the audience, by the way, right? They were like, well, what if we like gave name to things and try to count them, right? And try to put some structure around the actual threats, the actual breaches that we're seeing, right? They probably did something right because it's been like 11 years, right? And I can assure you there is a 12th edition being worked on right now, right? So it's keeping on, right? And it's a lot of data to obviously go through, a lot of data to obviously organize. But then finally, we're starting to talk things like this, right? And, oh, it's there. So if you go to this website, right, they actually have like some of the live data you can click through, and you can start to measure, and you can start to see that over the years, right, the prevalence of breaches that had involved a physical matter or had involved some misuse or some social components has fluctuated over the years, right? Of course, you have to take all of this with a grain of salt because it obviously what the DBIR sees is tied to the data that the DBIR gets, right? They don't claim to have all the breach data in the world. They're definitely trying, right? And I would wager that they are probably the closest to, they probably have the most data than anyone else because, again, they've been around for a while and they put together some good relationships. But my point here is that we're starting to measure, right? We're starting to see, and it becomes valuable for a company to understand that, you know what? Because I am this kind of company, and that's the great claim to fame, right? Because I am from this specific industry, maybe those are the things I should be caring about, right? And there's some cool stuff, other cool stuff on this website. This one specifically made me think about this, right? Specifically about this talk. Well, you know, when you're looking specifically about the action espionage, right? Which we all love here in this room, right? I'm in the right city. So mostly those things were involved backdoors and C2s, right? And I do appreciate how unhelpful backdoor sounds, and we'll get to there in a second, right? But it's giving you an idea, right? So if somehow you're able to accurately detect backdoors or C2s in your environment, right? Suddenly you're probably better at detecting this kind of activity into your network. And that's really all you can care for, right? If you believe you're being targeted by that, that's what you would care for, right? And financial ransomware was a big, big winner last year. This year, not so much. People were talking about coin miners here, and it correlates to activity I've seen as well, right? But again, ransomware is not helpful, right? How do you protect against ransomware? Well, there's an email, and there's a place you download, and then the data gets encrypted. There's some data exfil. I mean, hopefully the key gets out, right? So that you can pay for it and get the key back. Sometimes it doesn't. But if you think about it on attack terms, which is what we've been talking about, there's actually a lot of ways you can slice this out. You can be more granular and a little bit more tactical, right, on what we're seeing here. And hopefully most of the audience has already got to where I want them to do. So anyway, all those things are not random, right? So there is something called VERIS, right, which stands for Vocabulary of Incident Reporting and Incident Sharing, right? And it's one more of those standards that, frankly, not enough people care about. And what I specifically separated here is what we call the action varieties. So the things that happened, which roughly correlate to this is what you would observe in your network if you were breached that way, right? So it actually works the other way around when you think about the DBIR. Oh, there was a specific breach. Then we see what happened, right? And then we say, oh, these were all the actions that were occurred. So there's 6 major things there: malware, hacking, social misuse, physical error, and environmental, which is my absolute favorite. And they break down a little bit, like you said, the backdoor C2. So I'm just giving out some examples here. We don't really need to get stuck on them, right? And again, environmental is the best, right? A meteorite, right? And you have to understand, right? This is mostly risk analysis, right? There is an odd chance a meteorite could hit your data center. We have to make sure we are prepared for that, right? And I'm not going back to that slide, but if you see the prevalence of so environmental has been a 0 forever, right? I really hope we don't have to put a meteorite there, right? But it would be funny. I'm sorry. That's just the kind of person I am. It's just like, oh, that's so curious. This is the reason why we did this, right? Anyway, so, but what's the point, right? Why are we talking so much about risk? The point here is that, and again, this is a drum I keep beating all the time as well, is there's not enough time to do everything, right? And I honestly think attack simulation is an incredible idea. I enjoy the concept of attack simulation. I think it's way more, some of the new concepts that are there for security products in the market are not as interesting as attack simulation. So that was the most polite way I could put this sentence. And, but still, when it comes back and say, oh, look, there's 150 things you're not able to do, the question becomes, okay, which one should I do first, right? And nobody has a good answer for that. But then, if there was a reasonable way where we could actually measure the prevalence of the attack things, right? The actual atoms, right? As they are correlated to breaches and near misses, maybe we could start to go into a better direction as to which one should I do first, right? So this is really kind of what I'm seeing, right? So if VERIS through the DBIR, right? And I'm using VERIS instead of DBIR because you can just go there and use the standard yourself. You don't have to wait for us to print a report. Please, God, no, it takes forever. And do it on your own stuff, right? If that is able to help you with prioritizing, right, and attack with the data that you have on your telemetry analysis, either from an EDR perspective or a network perspective, and attack simulation can help you figure out what you need. Can't we do some magic stuff here in the middle, right? That's able to make them talk to each other, right? And again, help us prioritize the things that we were doing, right? So that tiny little magical thing, right, is what I decided to call VCAF, right? It's not decaf, okay? A lot of caffeine will be involved in making this thing work, okay? So if you guys are familiar with the PMI, the Project Management Institute, the PMP, the 5 stages of project management, right? This project is currently between the anger and bargaining stages. So we're hopefully there's some early exploration, right? We're pretty much figuring out what we need to get this done, right? We know there's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of potential data that we might need, and some of it we have, right? And really is the thing that I'm going to touch into more detail, but of course Verizon uses a lot of the data from their breaches, right? When they're creating the BIR. Everything's anonymized, blah, blah, blah. You know how that spiel works, right? You know how it works. But we have the actual technical details of what happened. So we can get to that level of granularity once we have the mapping. Or the granularity can help us do the mapping because we see, oh, when it's a ransomware, actually these are the atoms that are activated. So we don't really have to think that hard to figure out how we should organize the specific things. But for other breaches that we receive, there's a real unevenness of the detail of the data that we receive. But before I make you the pitch, let me tell you what I believe this could help, right? So I think there's two main things as we connect those two standards, I guess, the word I'm looking for, two main objectives we can get to. So first of all, connecting the strategic to the tactical, right? And I talked a little bit about the ideas that I have, and I do intend to go into a little bit more detail. But one of the things that I do want to do is that there's a lot of stuff in VERIS, right? Which, if they are, I know the meteorite thing is a funny joke, but most of the stuff that are in the action varieties in VERIS, they actually come from actual real life incidents that have happened, right? They're not there by accident, right? And we do not have the words, we do not have the atoms in attack for some of those things, right? So this is a bad way of putting it, right? I think attack is too focused on the APTs, right? So, and to be fair, I get it. I mean, one, the constituency, right? Definitely the people who are most interested in doing this sort of work are the more mature, and they believe that the other types of detection that we need is easier, which is not wrong, right? I do agree it's not wrong, but still, I think we could finish that work through the more, quote unquote, normal stuff that actually happens every day, right? We still need to measure those, right? Even if it's things that are not really, really happening, right? And when I say TAVs there, I actually mean action varieties, right? So maybe the most popular ones, we could also expand and have a different namespace. It's the VCAF attack expansion, whatever namespace. I have no idea how it's going to be called, but well, this is some other thing that people can use if they so wish. We certainly will be using those, right? Maybe pre-attack has a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if phishing on pre-attack is just for like W2 stuff, BEC, or an actual email delivery, like link delivery would happen. I don't know if establishing the infra would count as C2. So there's a lot of exploring. We haven't even looked at the mobile stuff yet, right? But one main tenet is that I don't want to do the work that has already been done, especially because like I'm lazy. It's why? Why would I do it again? So it's really about identifying where we can add value there. But the cool stuff here, in my opinion, is really the strategic plus tactical, right? So there's two things that come to my mind very, very clearly. First of all that the BIR machinery that I showed you, right? I mean, it's just counting, right? It's nothing really complicated, but it takes a lot of work to do that to apply to the breaches because the breaches are unstructured data. So we have to have a teeny tiny army, right, of Gabes, which they put this data together and classify it against VERIS, so then we can start doing those things. If we are collecting this data straight from all your wonderful security tools that have already tied the downstream, right, from attack to the actual things that's happening on the wire, suddenly we can all run this automatically. We don't really need to do any sort of fancy analysis. And this is not like, oh, this is Verizon things doing. No, the actual analysis, the VERIS framework, the code to run it, it's all open source. It's all on GitHub right now, right? We could use the same techniques like that, right? And specifically tying to your experience on your breach analysis and maybe even the larger DBIR, when you think about it, right? We could actually use the attack, the level of granularity of attack to drive what detective or protective measures people should invest on first. So this becomes literally the non-bullshit security sale, which is we have analyzed your environment, right? This is the results. It looks like the next thing you should buy is an EDR solution. Okay, that was easy, but you know what I mean, right? We can tell you exactly where it hurts. This is where the mythical ROI, which I don't actually subscribe so much to that, but at least you can kind of tell people where you're going. So, and this is a joke I missed from way back when, but I'm gonna make it now, is that actually, right, we in InfoSec, we are the 2-year-old doing a tantrum on the boardroom, right? We want something, we want money, but we can't tell them what it is, right? Maybe this is the way for us to be able to explicitly tell our boardroom parents what we need and what we want, right? So anyway, one of the other cool things you can do once you have that all in, right, which is again tied to this specific likelihood, is of course Monte Carlo simulations, right? And a quick explanation, which absolutely makes it no justice, is you just kind of know how frequent things are. You count them once, and then you just run it a million thousand times and see what shape the data becomes. Like, is it more likely to be like this? Is it more likely to be like that? You kind of draw what the probability distribution would be, right? If you were to replicate this data 1,000, million thousand times in the environment, right? So again, you can start simulating the attack paths. So you know from the breaches that this is what happens and this is what happens, and you can try to figure out what exactly is the best way for one of those things to end up with. And if you have a huge concentration, and this is not based out of attack data, right? All those things on the left side here, they're talking about the action varieties that we have. This is from the DBIR data from last year, I think, right? And you can start to see if the dot is big enough, right? And it goes back to your place as the attack progresses. It seems to go a lot. And so that's a very repeatable, specific atom that gets triggered all the time. That's probably where the best bang of your buck for detection comes at. This is a very simple example. It doesn't even need the mapping, right, to work. We could be doing this out of like real quote unquote live attack data from somewhere, right? And we can try to, again, what's the best bang for your buck there? Ongoing those things. So you see, most of the attacks, they're very short, right? Because, I mean, why are you going to be doing a lot of different steps? You want to make sure you're detected the least, right? This is why they all congregate on the left side. Anyway, right? So mapping is hard, right? It's very, very challenging, right? I mean, at least I know that I won't be needing to be mapping the meteorite to anything. I don't need to be like, oh, this is from a comet, is this from an asteroid? But I mean, what am I going to do with bootkits, right? What standard application layer protocol? Which ones do you need, guys? Which ones do you need? So, you know what I mean? So some of these will not be one-to-one, right? Some of these will take a little bit more work, and we hope the data will be able to tell us instead of us just making random wild assumptions and being terribly wrong, right? We can be maybe a little less wrong if we have data back from it, right? We'll obviously be using data from the breaches that we're collecting from the DBIR this year, from Verizon itself, right? And any actual real life data from near misses. So if you are an attack simulation company and you would like to contribute to the DBIR, right? And some of you do, and we're very, very thankful. Please, I'm not going to exactly say the names of them, but please open your last year's DBIR, look for their names on the cover, and please give them lots of kisses and hugs, right? We can use this data as samples of data to, again, do this measurement and work around those things, right? So, yeah, give me your data maybe, right? That's pretty much where we are now, right? And I'm not the right person for you to give the data to, right? I would not know what to do it, but there is a process for that to happen, and we're happy to talk to you, whomever you may be, an actual company, a vendor, or somewhere in between, I don't know, right? And again, depending on how the babies turn out and how much work they let us do, right? Our goal is to kind of have an appendix about this on next year DBIR, right? I'm not really making any promises, right? I mean, legal is watching this right now as we speak, but we're definitely going to try. That's definitely what I would like to do for this. Anyway, so please make sure you give your contribution, right? This is Kyle Maxwell. So Kyle was a Verizon employee at the time this picture was taken, so he has actually forfeit use of this for all eternity for Verizon-specific presentations, right? So anyway, that was pretty much all I got. Thank you so much.